number 2 is about creativity. And I would say with this prompt, I actually see a lot of students get scared away from this prompt because when they see the word creative, immediately you think of like art or something artistic, drama or theater or visual arts or music. And so a lot of people stay away from this prompt, even though it's actually probably my favorite prompt to respond to. I would say like most everyone should be able to write a response to this because there is some part of your life or something that you do or some way that you think that is unique or interesting or different than everyone around you, right? By definition, this is true of every single human being, right? Every single human being is like unique in some way. And this essay prompt gives you the ability to talk about that in completely random context. So I would say the most powerful version of this essay that I usually read is about creativity in a non-creative pursuit. If anything, you want to get creative about how you define creativity, right? So another variation on this essay that does work really well sometimes is if you do have a more artistic or creative pursuit, even if you have something like you find yourself getting lost in, whether that is economics or science or physics or whatever, getting like almost like lost in the art and getting into a creative flow can make for a really powerful narrative essay. So there's a great way to write that in a narrative format and a narrative structure that's really powerful. And again, it's a great essay prompt to explore creativity in problem solving and take the reader through your mindset and how your brain works. I always like to say that the ways you convey your personality in a college essay are you're usually telling an admissions officer one of 3 things or some combination of these 3 things. What matters to you and why? How do you think about the world and how does your mindset work? And how do you approach and react to different situations on a sort of mental level and on an emotional level? And so this is a great essay prompt to really get into that mindset component, right? Like, how does your mind work? Take an admissions officer into your mind. Now, one thing that's important to note is that the word innovative thinking often trips people up, right? What they're asking for there is something that is innovative in the context in which you're operating. No one is expecting you to have come up with an entirely new economics theorem or engineering postulate or whatever. What they want to understand is how did you approach a problem or approach an idea differently than the people around you or than the society around you, right? So innovative in context, not innovative in a vacuum, because by definition, most thoughts that people have, especially as 17 and 18-year-olds, aren't going to be innovative in the context of the world, but they can absolutely be innovative in the context of your class or your club or your family or whatever. And oftentimes that family is actually an underrated response to this prompt. If you have a difference in mindset than your parents or your siblings or your extended family, I've actually seen some great essays written from that perspective, where your innovative thinking is in the context of your family's, the way that your family does things. And when you're doing that, you want to make sure you're drawing that contrast between what you'd call the conventional approach and the unconventional approach. Now, I will say that maybe the coolest or the most powerful versions of an essay I've seen in response to this actually do this thing where they subvert the expectations of the admissions officer, right? The admissions officer expects to read, broadly speaking, an essay where you have some creative or innovative thoughts, and it leads to some sort of positive outcome, right? Like, we became better as a sports team or as a club, or I changed my family's behavior for the better. But a really powerful essay sometimes can be one where you fail, right? Where you take a creative approach to something and it doesn't work for some reason, whether it's because your creativity was the wrong approach or because of factors outside of your control. But especially in that second case, if you write an essay in that context, it makes for a really powerful essay. People always ask me, how do you avoid a cliched essay? One of the best ways to avoid a cliched essay is, try to describe the story that you're telling. Pretend you're describing the story that you're telling to someone, right? What is the ending that they would expect if you got 80% of the way through the story, you said, okay, what happens next? And then whatever your answer is to that, write the opposite of that. So in this case, you're talking about this creative technique that you discovered to do X or Y. Most people would expect at the end of that there's a positive outcome or some sort of change for the positive. But if you flip that and put it into a negative, then all of a sudden you've just broken a cliche. And I saw some folks in the questions earlier, we're definitely going to get to those down the line, asking about sports or mental health, or Y or Z. And the question was like, is this a cliche topic? And my answer is, a cliche topic is not just about like the topic itself. It's also about how someone who's reading your story expects that story to turn out. And so if you flip that on its head and you give them a different ending to the story than they expected, then even if the topic is a more common one, you can still break that pattern.